Hey everyone, and welcome to the FPL eye test. I'm your host Kevin, as always, and here today we'll be checking out the. I have no idea what I'm saying.
No.
Okay.
Get lost. Hello, this is. I forgot my intro now, even.
Okay, no, continue. That's fine.
Hello, my name is Mathias, and welcome to the FPL Scope. With me today, I have Kevin, who visited me pretty impromptu, and I realized I still have my Invisalign on, so if I sound a bit weird, that's why. But Kevin is joining me here in Oslo, and I figured why not bring him into the FPL eye test for game week 7. That's game week 7, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, we only have one mic though, so yeah, you can only hear me now, or you could hear Kevin a bit. But either way, we'll go through all the games from this weekend's Premier League matches and look at it from an FPL perspective. And mostly I'm just going to let Kevin take it away for each game pretty much and talk about each game, and then I can have my small little input. So, Kevin, starting off with the first game, we have Aston Villa against Brighton. Obviously, there's a pretty big thing standing out here, and that's the scoreline, and especially also the expected goals as well. But what did you take out from this game in terms of FPL and their assets, the assets from Aston Villa and Brighton, because both teams have pretty good assets in FPL. So going forward, are you interested in Aston Villa players, Brighton players, both, neither? How are you feeling it? Which players?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway from this is the fact that there's a scoreline of 6-1. But the most important thing is the one, because Ansu Fati scored, and who gives a credit about Watkins, who got 5-goal involvement, which is absolutely insane. So, of course, Ollie Watkins very much performed. He did it in front of Gareth Southgate as well, so he's definitely going to get an England call-up as well. But I think people like Matty Cash, who Mathias has been singing praises of for a long while, who I laughed at as well, has proven that, he's back to his regular form. And, of course, Aston Villa are great at Villa Park. So it's a bit of an anomaly that it ended up being 6-1 with Jason Steele, who also had Ollie Watkins in his FPL team, which is a bit sus. But, of course, that's just FPL, right? I don't think he would tank his career for the sake of FPL. But that being said, it was just phenomenal to see. Douglas Luiz scored. Watkins went absolutely crazy. Diaby got 2 assists and looks to be a serious option for everyone. We've been singing his praises, but despite not having him since the beginning of the season. But of course, in my case, I'm definitely looking to bringing him in, and Mathias might reveal a little bit later what's going on with his plans with Diaby.
Yeah, and just also want to take note of, as you can see from the notes here, Watkins is better than Haaland, because so far Watkins has actually outscored Haaland, which is pretty crazy. He has 1 more point than Haaland, I think, in general, and Haaland has been the most essential player to have, 92% owner or whatever, and Watkins was dropped by most FPL managers. Even though a lot of managers had him in Game Week 1, a lot of them dropped him for Nick Jackson, which is kind of funny looking back at it now. But yeah, when it comes to Brighton, we've seen this before. You've seen this before with Everton, your favorite team. They destroyed Brighton last season 5-1. But Brighton, they can turn back and win 3-0 against Arsenal in the next game. Because I think it was sort of like that same thing last year as well. It wasn't that far between the 5-1 Everton win and then the 3-0 win against Arsenal for Brighton. So yeah, I don't think this is Brighton are done, they're finished. I don't think it's Aston Villa are for sure going to score 6 goals every game. But yeah, Watkins, for sure, he is in a lot of different wildcard squads. I know wildcard Game Week 8 is very popular. Neither of us are doing a wildcard. You've already used your wildcard, and I'm saving mine for way later. But yeah, I think both teams have some really good assets. And yeah, like Kevin says, Ansu Fati, sneaky asset if he starts playing and Brighton gets better fixtures pretty soon. I think it looks pretty good for Brighton. But let's move on to the next game, which is West Ham against Sheffield United. It is my favorite team, West Ham, of course, and it was a pretty easy win, 2-0. And as suspected, Ward-Prowse would be very much involved. His expected goal involvement, non-penalty expected goal involvement, was 1.20, which was really good. He only got 1 assist, though. But as expected, they created a lot of chances from set pieces against Sheffield United. And just a regular 2-0 win for West Ham, pretty easy win against pretty bad opposition in Sheffield United. So anything that stuck out to you from this game, or is it just as expected pretty much?
I think it's pretty much as expected. Sheffield United have sort of been, which is quite ironic, just like Luton been the spanking opponents of the Premier League. And of course, I I think everything went as expected. Ward-Prowse got involved. Bowen scored again, and Souček has just been on fire lately. Maybe a little sneaky pick for everyone who's looking to just have someone to stash. If there's anyone that you'd want to stash from West Ham,
it'd be 4.9 as well. Nothing.
Yeah. So with a cheap price of 4.9, and also the fact that if you're having a dilemma of having to bench someone because you want to go with Watkins, Alvarez, and Haaland, for example, then Souček might be a viable option because he's back in form. His confidence seems to be up because there was a lot of confidence issues, which was the main thing as to why I felt he was playing a lot worse. But now everything's looking very good, and Moyes' ball has been phenomenal. I mean, I'm a Evertonian, so I know that Moyes will eventually get things going, and of course he has with the Conference League win, and now just looking to see where West Ham can end in the table. I mean, if they finish in a Europa League spot and potentially win the Europa League, that's another successful year under Moyes. So yeah, I think it's business as per. I think Bowen and Ward-Prowse are amazing picks. I personally have Areola, who got a clean sheet. Didn't feel like it was ever in doubt, but of course Hammer or Archer are always tricky opponents in that regards, but throughout the game of watching it and stuff like that, I felt that the clean sheet was in the bank, and I was one very happy Areola owner.
Yeah, fair enough. Areola is also like the most popular goalkeeper by far from what I've seen from the wildcards, and it makes sense. He's only 4.2 still. I think maybe he has gone up to 4.3 by the time you're watching this, but yeah, he's fantastic value. He's been one of the best goalkeepers in the league so far, and credit to you as well. You always said that he should be the starting goalkeeper for West Ham. You said that the last couple seasons, and yeah, he's shown that he's absolutely worth the starting position for West Ham, and that's not under threat anymore at all. Fabianski is going to play in the cup. He did play really well in the League Cup against Lincoln, had some terrific saves there. But Areola has been fantastic in the league and is going to be the best goalkeeper to have in FPL going forward, I think, especially for that price. Yeah, Sheffield United just helpless once again. I might have to play Archer next game week. We're going to discuss Mbuemo pretty soon, and it's going to be a decision between, for me at least, playing Mbuemo or Archer. Not really the best decision, but yeah, we'll talk more about that when we get to Mbuemo, I guess. So let's move on to your team, Everton. Sadly for you, again, as I've written there, they can't keep getting away with this. This is obviously the opposite. They can't keep doing this, Everton, like creating the most chances, having the best XG, and then losing the game against a pretty weak opponent. Thought Everton were kind of like on the right track with the 3-1 win against Brentford, but then at home to Luton ends up being a loss. So yeah, just put words to how disappointed you are as an Everton fan, and are you worried about Everton, or are you still feeling pretty confident about Everton staying up?
I'm still very confident in the fact that Everton will stay up. I think this felt like a game where we did exactly what we've been doing at home, which is playing well but not getting over the line, and even a draw would have been a disappointing result. So for me, I think Dyche as a manager at Everton is pretty numbered, because his days are numbered in the sense that he's soon going to be one of the worst points managers, the managers who's gotten the least points in the Premier League or in the league, which is saying a lot. That's saying that he's doing results worse than Lampard, and he has arguably a much better squad than Lampard did. So for me, I think there are still some shining lights. One of those being Calvert-Lewin, who I said would score in this game and did, and he's looked good ever since these last couple of games where he scored against Brentford, scored against Aston Villa in the League Cup, and now has scored in the game against Luton as well. So that's 3 games in a row. So if there's anyone that you should consider, it's him. Doucouré, who got the assist as well. He's been phenomenal for us, and we've been really unlucky. James Garner hit the crossbar and all this type of stuff when it was 0-0. So yeah, it's just really frustrating. It's really unlucky as well that Ashley Young manages to get a clearance off that hits the defender and it rockets in. So, but that being said, the defensive lapse to let Carlton Morris score was just terrible because he was just completely free and was able to side volley it and to and I wouldn't say an empty net because that's a bit disrespectful for Pickford, but Pickford was in no man's land because it's not even his fault. It's the poor defending at home that's cost us. It's gonna be the thing that costs us. And when you have a defensive manager like Sean Dyche, who's known for being a defensive sound manager, it's embarrassing. It's enough. And I'm be completely honest, I want him gone. And yeah, you know, you can argue that managers isn't the issue, it's the squad, and I somewhat agree with that because we've had a lot of injuries and stuff like that. But how far can Dyche realistically take this Everton side? Besides keeping them up, that's not good long term if that's what we're going to be doing year in, year out when we're a club who's about to get a new stadium and also have European ambitions and have been in Europe. So for me, it's time for a manager switch. It's time for a whole dynamic switch at the club as well, because enough is enough.
Yeah, fair enough. And yeah, we spoke a lot about Everton there, but Luton, I think it's still a team to target. As you can see from the XG, Everton 2.90 XG from this game. Luton are definitely not in the clear in terms of either staying up or not being a team to target in FPL, but at least there's a couple more points for them in terms of not equaling or being worse than the Derby record, which has been like the talking point. But there are several teams in the Premier League that might be contenders for that, and we'll get to those pretty soon as well. Yeah, let's move on to the next games. And yeah, the first one is Man United against Crystal Palace. And as I've written there, bye-bye Man United double mids. As I've said, a lot of people are wildcarding, and those that are not wildcarding are probably looking to sell one of the Man United midfielders, or both, if you still have both, for some reason. Bruno Fernandes, though, to his credit, had the best non-penalty expected goal at the moment, but at the same time, Man United didn't really create much at all. It is against Crystal Palace, and that's what I kind of want to bring up again with Palace, and a player that might be a differential for your wildcard if you're wildcarding, and that is Joachim Andersen, because he keeps scoring. It was a really good goal as well, like great strike from Andersen, and he's a bonus machine. Crystal Palace are really good defensively. They keep a lot of clean sheets. So I think he is a really interesting pick, and he's someone that you can bench in tougher games and start in easier games. So I think he is a really good pick, especially if you can find some good rotation like partners for him as well. He's someone that can step in and definitely get some points. He's been really good. But yeah, in general, Man United, they still have some pretty easy fixtures coming up. I know they have I think they have Sheffield United and no, they just played Burnley. They have Sheffield United coming up and some pretty easy games as well. But it seems like most people are just leaving them to be, and do you think that's the right decision, or do you think for anyone that has had them since game week 1, you personally have Fernandes yourself, what do you think about the Man United midfielders now going forward?
I think we've touched upon it in the past where it's game dependent, and in a game where United are in control, it's best to have Bruno Fernandes, but if it's a game where they're going to have to counter a lot, it's best to have I guess no one at this point, but it would have been Rashford, but they have just been in complete disarray. Things are dysfunctional, but to their credit, if you looked at the highlights from the United game, Bruno Fernandes created a lot of chances that should have been an assist or a goal, and there was options of Højlund passing a completely wide open Bruno Fernandes, which would have been a goal for me and also a goal for Man United and all this type of stuff. And Højlund also getting a chip that was cleared off the line. So United did create their chances, but just like Everton, they just couldn't finish their chances. And it's a bit annoying because you have players like Son, Maddison, and etc. who are just firing on all cylinders and are doing it against every single team. So I think it's definitely, I've been advocating for a long time that double up on players that are, or teams that are good. United aren't a good team right now and therefore shouldn't be doubled up on. And I think, yeah, it's 100% bye-bye Man United double mids. I'd say give it one more game with Rash and Bruno if you already have Son or you already have Maddison, but definitely don't go for the double up. And in regards to Crystal Palace, yeah, Joachim Andersen has been someone who's been on my watch list for a long time. He's been great. scored a wonderful goal as well. And it's just seizing on the sort of form of his life right now. Eze very lucky to be credited with the assist, considering the fact that it was not intended to Joachim Andersen at all and all this type of stuff. But that being said, Eze is still always a solid asset, and I am still expecting him to explode. But he's a very streaky player, so you're going to have to wait to see if he gets there, and that's going to be annoying. So I'd rather say maybe opt for a Diaby or one of these other guys for the time being. If Eze gets a good run of games, then yeah, that's maybe the time to look into him. But other than that, I think assets aren't the best, but of course, it's worth keeping an eye out, that's for sure. I mean, they're in a good momentum right now. So yeah, I'd still recommend their striker options as well, barring no injuries. And just keep an eye out. Roy is a fun manager, and it's been fun to see Palace have a decent season. You know, a lot of people were expecting them to be completely terrible and all this type of stuff, but hey, they've proven the opposite as of currently.
Yeah, I think Palace are also kind of like NFL, maybe not so underrated because they do not produce that many goals, but maybe defensively, like we said, Anderson, definitely someone you can bring in. It seems like Johnson is still going to be the goalkeeper, even though Henderson is there, but he's injured now as well. He also got a clean sheet once again. So if you have kept Johnson all this time, then congrats, because Palace are actually finding the reform defensively now. But yeah, offensively, it's pretty much Eze and then no one else until Michael Elise is back. He's going to unlock a lot of things for Crystal Palace because they were really good offensively under Roy Hodgson towards the end of last season. So with Elise back, then maybe you can invest in attacking Palace players as well. But for now, I'd say just stick to defenders if you want to go with the Palace player at all. Man United, I sort of agree with you. Bruno Fernandes, it's sort of like he creates a lot of chances, but that's been the case the whole last season as well, and he just underperforms his numbers because he doesn't have that good of teammates to score the goals just yet. Højlund still young, Rashford is completely out of form. So yeah, Man United pretty much just stay away, and especially for all you guys wildcarding, plenty of midfielders to choose from. But I think in your case, as someone that has Fernandes and is not wildcarding, I think you're fine with sticking with him. But at the same time, if you have an extra transfer or two, then maybe you should look to sell him at some point. But yeah. Let's move on to Newcastle against Burnley, and this was pretty much as expected. Newcastle are kind of repeating the same thing that they did last year. The first 5 or 6 games, they looked like okay-ish. They were hard to beat, but they didn't really score that many goals and didn't really win that many games. But then they found their form, and that seems like what they're doing now as well, getting much easier fixtures. They've started winning now, and easily beat Burnley 2-0. Trippier again, kind of lucky assist, but I'm saying that as a non-owner. I know you have him, so you have more reasons to be happy about that than me. But also Isak got the chance up front because Wilson wasn't completely fit, and I think that's also a good indication. If Wilson is out, this game shows you that Isak can be really dangerous. He did miss a huge chance to score, so he could have had way more points as well. But he did notch a goal from a penalty. I think Isak, especially if Wilson is out now, confirmed for a couple games, but probably not. But if Wilson is out, Isak is definitely someone to look at for a wildcard, I think. Burnley didn't really do much at all. Their best non-penalty expected goal involvement player is Odobert, and I hadn't heard of him before I made these statistics. Do you have any idea who he is, and what do you think of the game in general and Newcastle assets going forward as well?
No idea. I have no idea. I saw the name come up on the screen, and I'm like, what? So no idea. Need to do my research and get back to you on that one. In regards to Newcastle, it was business as usual. Real shame that Gordon got another yellow card, as he just seems to have a disciplinary issue with that aspect of the game, but looked quality, obviously won the penalty, and Trips got the luckiest assist I've seen in a long time, because he literally won the ball, didn't even see that Almiron was there, and then Almiron magic basically just turned into Messi and scored one of the greatest goals of all time. No, that's a bit of a stretch, but it's a very nice goal, to be fair. Goal of the month sort of category. That being said, I think Newcastle are just going to do what they did last year. Like you said, it's a form thing for them. So they're just going to keep rolling. Of course, they have some difficult matches here and there, but as someone who has Bernino, or Dan Burn, as he's actually known as, and Trippier, I feel pretty confident with a lot of their games. I think it feels really good with Anthony Gordon as well, because he's clearly just exploded. He's showing why he came for 40 million, because he's just getting assists and goals now every other game. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident with Newcastle players, and it's just now a question for them whether they can translate that into the Champions League as well, because if the Champions League starts going poorly, then they might actually start jigging and doing all these type of things in the league, which I don't want. I kind of just want them, obviously, because I have 3 players, want them to sort of shore out the Champions League so it's fine for league play. But as you said, I'm Swedish, so I'm always going to back Isak, and Isak was phenomenal yet again, even though he should have probably had a brace or even a hat-trick, because despite that one mega miss, there was another chance that he had that he sort of failed to bury as well. But that's sort of the striker curse this season. Even Haaland's been woeful in front of goal in certain matches and certain chances. But it's very encouraging that Isak gets a lot of these chances as well. That means that Newcastle are in a good groove and are getting the chances up to their strikers. So yeah, I'd 100% recommend almost every single player at Newcastle right now, because they're just in really good form. But of course, Trippier, if you're going to go for him, be sure that you have the funds elsewhere to make sure that your team is strong, including a team that's in form. We'll talk about Arsenal next.
Exactly. That is the game we're moving to, and that is Bournemouth against Arsenal. And what I want to know here from you is whether you think this is Bournemouth being bad, Arsenal being good, or a mixture of it. Because I think Bournemouth have kind of gone under the radar as a team that is not that good. If you look at the table, I think they're third last now. They have like 5 goals scored and 15 goals conceded. 4 of them against Arsenal, obviously. But also Arsenal rounding into form now, 4-0. City are showing a bit of weakness. We're going to talk about City after this as well. Arsenal looking to prove that they are actual league contenders, and this is a really good way to do it. And Saka as well, 1.42 non-expected or non-penalty expected goal involvement, really good. And that's obviously non-penalty. He could have had a couple of penalties, but he gave them away as well, which speaks to his character. But that's not what we want as FPL owners. We want him to take those penalties and get the hat trick. But yeah, I think Saka is definitely someone that is really difficult to sell if you're selling him, even though they play Man City next. Man City have shown that they are sort of susceptible to concede, as they did twice against Wolverhampton. And I think Arsenal are looking really good. But is it Arsenal looking really good, or is it more that Bournemouth are still just not finding their groove under Iraola? Like, what do you think about Arsenal going forward after watching this game against Bournemouth?
Yeah, I mean, I think Arsenal are classic Arsenal against shittier teams, and I'm sorry to be pissing off Bournemouth fans here. They are very good, and I think that's the reason why a lot of us have doubled up or tripled up with Arsenal assets, because they're fantastic. They are clearly the number 2 team of the Premier League in that regards, and could even end up winning the whole shebang in next year. So it's just a question of, I mean, I don't have belief in them against City. I'm sorry, I don't. I think this year, more than last year, for sure, especially with De Bruyne out, they could possibly grab that win. But I don't care in that regards, because in terms of FPL assets, I have midfielders and up with them. I didn't go with their defenders, but their defenders and defense have been good these last couple of game weeks, and it shows that they're able to keep the clean sheet against clubs that are dysfunctional, or not. That's a better term, not shit clubs, dysfunctional, or things aren't just going their way, or they're out of form. And I think Arsenal have been spectacular. Just looking at the game as well, they're taking the piss letting Havertz take a penalty when they're 2-0 up as well. So clearly things are looking good. In the Champions League, of course, they got that 4-0 win. everything's looking good for them currently. So they're ride the form. I have Saka. I have no intentions of selling Saka, especially because the injury thing. He's an Iron Man. He's just going to keep playing until he actually gets injured. So for me, if I were you, unless that's the only way you can get Heung-min Son, who has really good fixtures going forward, that's the only reason you should do it. But as it says on the graphics, you do it at your own risk. I wouldn't personally. I'd rather look at selling maybe a Bruno Fernandes, Rashford, or any other midfielders that you have that's costing a lot but not producing a lot back, including Raheem Sterling, so who I do have. But Arsenal are in a great moment right now. I wouldn't panic just because they have one awful fixture in City and one question mark in Chelsea. Because Chelsea, if it's Chelsea, Arsenal of old, then it'll be like 1-1 because they tend to get a lot of random draws. But Chelsea could also end up losing to Fulham today. So we'll see.
Yeah, as you might have gathered, we are recording this before the Chelsea-Fulham game, and it's going to be released after the Chelsea-Fulham game. So you'll know if Sterling is still not producing and if Chelsea are still not producing. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that in the future. But I actually think Arsenal have a really good chance against Man City, and mostly that's due to Rodri being out. I think that is going to affect Man City and has affected Man City, as we saw now against Wolves. We'll get to Man City pretty soon, but yeah, I think Saka is a really good pick. I think Ødegaard is also a really good pick. Like, he, not the best like underlying numbers, but he did create a lot of chances and looked really good. And obviously is a threat to take penalties. There's his non-penalty expected goals, so no penalties included. But he has shown that he's going to take every other penalty. It seems like him and Saka and now Havertz as well are kind of just sharing depending on the mood. Like, I think if Saka hadn't scored the first goal, I think he probably would have taken the penalty himself. But it might also be the fact that they just take every other penalty as well, Saka and Ødegaard, and then they just gave Havertz one as they were already winning the game at that point. But yeah, I think Arsenal are going to beat City, but we'll get to the predictions on the FPL Scope podcast later in the week. But let's move on to the next game and the standout game of the whole game week, and the most controversial game of the whole game week, because this is where the VAR thing happened, where they missed like completely clear and obvious goal for Liverpool. And as I've written there, Salah never blanks. He should have had an assist. He did get his first official blank in FPL, but he should have had an assist for the Luis Diaz goal. Luis Diaz in his own right had a really good finish for that goal as well. Scored. Liverpool as well. Red cards. We are sort of, I don't know, we're both sort of like unsure about the red card, and I think you're more leaning towards it shouldn't have been a red, and I'm leaning towards maybe it should have been a red, but I'm not completely sure about that at all either. I can buy both arguments there, but what's not debatable is the fact that Liverpool were screwed out of having a goal, and we all know the reason why. It's because the VAR thought that they had given a goal, that the goal was going to stand when they said that the call stands, because yeah, they thought it was a goal. But yeah, really controversial. And then obviously Liverpool, with 9 men on the pitch, managed to defend really well, but then they conceded a final own goal from Matip, and great for Spurs. Pedro Porro with an assist. He's also someone that we should talk about and mention. He, especially now that Udogie is pretty much the same price as him, I think Pedro Porro is a really good differential shout, because it seems like he's going to play every game now. He has played pretty much every game so far this season. Also, just another thing for this game as well, I think, like as I've written here, have Spurs found their best front three with Richarlison on the left, Son through the middle, and then Kulusevski on the right. It seems so, and you're a big fan of all three of those guys. So yeah, I know you will approve of those guys. But yeah, in general, what did you see from this game? Are Spurs for real as a title contender even? And what do you think about Liverpool as well? And what happened to them? I know you're an Everton fan, so parts of it you did like, but at the same time, as someone who wants a fair game, it also kind of sucks for them to have everything taken away from them.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I see nothing wrong with the decision. Liverpool deserved to lose like the dogs they are, but in all honesty, as an advocate of VAR, I'm one of the rare instances of someone who wants VAR in the game. I think this is absolutely fucking shocking that we came to a point where something so clear, even without the lines, which should have been drawn in the first place, I was able to say that, yeah, it's onside, 100% onside. And for it to come down to grammar being the issue of why someone doesn't give the goal or why the goal wasn't all this type of bullshit is incredible to me. I'm sick and tired of the apologies. There's been so many apologies that have happened in these last couple of weeks. It's cost Everton points, it's cost now Liverpool points, and it's cost Wolves points with the Man United thing. There's been so many wrong decisions lately, and I don't think that they're taking the necessary steps to get things going. I've seen some of these the Premier League clubs should take a stance to stop playing until they sort it out, and all. I don't know how much I agree with that, but I do feel that something needs to change, because this is not how I envisioned VAR to be used, and it is completely ruining the game. So I think it's just shocking, and I hate Liverpool, but I of course as a football fan sympathize for them, and I think it's just such a shit way for the game to go, and it's horrible. But in terms of FPL assets and stuff like that, I wouldn't worry if you're invested in Liverpool players in FPL, especially Salah. Salah is looking great as always, and I think will rebound from the fact that he officially blanked, even though that's complete BS in my eyes. And then with Spurs, they're just moving on as usual. Son looks great. Maddison looks great. Richarlison even looks great too. And, one of the more ridiculed, controversial players right now. But the front line looks great. If you want to go for a differential, go with Richarlison. But it's Son and Maddison that you have to be looking for, especially considering the fixtures that they have coming up. Son looks fantastic. Maddison is Maddison. If he had just shot with his right foot instead of his left like he kept doing in the game, he might have scored as well. So, yeah, I think full-on Spurs. Udogie didn't live up to his normal standards, but Pedro Porro did. Pedro Porro has been very consistent throughout the Premier League start. So, yeah, I think he's another option. I think Trent might be the forgotten man. Definitely a differential at this point. I think that's someone to look into. Darwin's going to be there because of Jota getting a red card, and Luis Diaz is Luis Diaz. I think if you can't for whatever reason afford Salah, 100% get in Luis Diaz. I think he's been too good lately to ignore. And so my takeaway from this game is get both players, get players from both teams, and even go Son Maddison, because they're the form team right now. So if you're going to double up on any team, Spurs might be the team to actually do a double up on.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough as well. And Cody Gakpo as well is out for a couple of weeks now, I think. So that also gives Darwin some more chances to play as well, which is going to be good for him, because playing time is his biggest enemy pretty much in FPL. Also, Spurs, the thing that is also of note here is, like we said, or we sort of hinted at it with the best front three, but Son actually played as a striker, even though Richarlison was playing as well. Another huge benefit for Son, because some people were worried that he was going to be shifted off to the left and not be as involved, but Richarlison also showed that you can be really involved even though you're playing on the left-hand side as well. But Son through the middle, really dangerous. He had another chance where it was offside as well. He had a goal disallowed, I think, for offside. It was a clear offside, but the Maddison through pass to either Richarlison or Kulusevski and then passing it into Son seems like a winner for Spurs. Definitely look out for that as well. So Spurs assets for sure, definitely something you can invest in, but also be aware of Son with his slight injury issues as well. The only thing about Son that is kind of a letdown in FPL is the fact that he gets subbed off every time after like 60 or 70 minutes, but that might still be just like the nagging injury issues that is hampering him. Another thing to note with Son as well is the fact that we have an international break between Game Week 8 and Game Week 9, so maybe for the Fulham game in Game Week 9 he might have played I haven't even checked the schedule if he's playing in Asia this time, because last international break he played at Wembley and stuff. He played in England, so it didn't really become a factor. But that might become a factor for Game Week 9. So just keep that in mind before you invest in Son. I I say as someone that has already bought on this game week or for next game week, but yeah, so keep that in mind as well. But yeah, another game that we've alluded to several times in this FPL eye test video is the Wolverhampton Man City game. 2-1, pretty shocking result there for Wolverhampton. Should also be noted that the first goal for Wolverhampton is an own goal, so it doesn't get counted as XG at all, even though it was a really nice setup from Pedro and a dangerous ball inside the box, where Ruben Diaz put it into his own net. So that doesn't get accounted for in terms of the expected goal numbers. But the more interesting thing, because 0.47 is what we expect from Wolves against Man City, but 0.87 from Man City against Wolverhampton is way less than what we expect from Man City usually. And somewhat is for sure down to them not having Rodri, who has been their best player this season pretty much, especially with Haaland underperforming so far. And that's also what I want to ask you, because it is kind of a discussion point now if you should actually brave it and go without Haaland now on a wild card. Is it time to worry about Haaland at all? Is it because we saw obviously how good he was in his first season in the Premier League, but at the same time we also saw with Salah, even though he was still a great player the second season, he had a pretty massive drop off after the first amazing season with Liverpool. So is Haaland really that essential, especially now that he's probably not going to be the best captain each and every week? Like, is he essential to have, or could you go without him, or is it just fine to just have him and not captaining him? Like, what do we do with Haaland and City assets in general? Like, how confident are we in all the City assets, do you think, after this game?
I still think that regardless of the result, that Haaland is still essential. I think anyone who gets rid of him is freaking out. I do think that his ability as captain might be the thing that I will question, because it won't hurt me if we captain other guys at this point if all Haaland's going to get is a goal. But considering the fact that if you look at a lot of the City matches, that so many chances are created for Haaland, and Haaland necessarily doesn't even need much chance creation in regards to touches and stuff to score in the first place. Like, he could just literally get the ball and shoot and score. So for me, I think it's more, and this happened to Haaland last year as well, towards the tail end of the season, where he just sort of form dips. It happens, but class is permanent, as they say. So I personally wouldn't freak out. I just think that maybe you're allowed to finally captain other players, and I think that's where FPL gets fun. I think it's quite boring when you have seasons where you just captain one player the entire season and that's it. Now we can finally shift it and, mess around a little bit. Maybe Haaland should take a rest as well. I don't a part of me feels like he looks a little bit tired when he's been playing lately. So will he rest in the Champions League? Probably not. And will he ever get that rest? No. I mean, he did technically rest against Newcastle, then they got kicked the fuck out. So, so part of me is just wondering whether Haaland could finally just get his form back. I think that's the most important thing. But Haaland's Haaland at the end of the day. There's a reason why he's so expensive in FPL. There's a reason why he keeps banging them in, and why he is one of the top 2 picks for the Ballon d'Or later in the year as well. So yeah, for sure keep him. But if you're a Julian Alvarez owner, I'd say also keep him, because he's just everywhere. He's taking free kicks now, which I don't think he would have done as much if De Bruyne was there, and obviously playing time would have been probably less if De Bruyne was there too. But that being said, Julian Alvarez is in a really good form and momentum right now, and this is something I've always said. Mathias has always said too. We've been big fans of him since his days at River Plate, and sky's the limit with the kid. I think personally, just because, yes, he blanked here, or yes, he didn't score this one easy opportunity, you shouldn't freak out. I think the double up is worth it. This was just a blip. But that being said, Pedro Neto's definitely on my radar. I think he's been fantastic for them. I think Kwang has been very good, or that Korean guy, as Pep very fucking stupidly said. So I'm really glad just for that comment that Kwang scored the winner as well. And Cunha, no one should have an FPL simply because the guy doesn't know how to shoot, but at least when it comes to assists, he knows what he's doing and was able to get a very nice, very unselfish pass, because I've seen players, including in the Liverpool game, where instead of passing Salah, he just shot, and in Cunha's case, he actually passed. So, yeah, I think Wolves have some fun differentials, but I still wouldn't consider them must-own players because Wolves are so inconsistent. But that being said, about City defenders, I still think it's tough to say whether they're worth having, because they always, like, they concede in the most random games, including this one where I felt it was pretty random. Not to say that it was undeserved or anything like that, but this was a game we were all expecting to be a whitewash, and they still conceded twice. So maybe skip the defense in your wild cards, but definitely keep an eye out for Doku. Foden, who I kind of wasn't that impressed with today, with the weekend match, but he's still, of course, Phil Foden. Doku, very, very sick, and of course, Haaland and Julian Alvarez are top assets. So just bear that in mind. Don't freak out. Also, don't think you have to get Watkins just because Julian Alvarez or Haaland didn't do this or X or Y. So, but that being said, Watkins is a good option, and that's a completely irrelevant player to be talking about during Wolves and Manchester City.
Yeah, and I actually agree with you when it comes to Haaland. I did ask the question because that's obviously a lot of FPL managers are asking that question. Should we still have Haaland? And I think it's just keep in mind that he's still like 1 point behind Watkins in terms of being the highest scoring forward in the game. And considering he's missed so many chances that he usually scores, we know he easily could have been still like 20 points clear of the next forward. So I still think Haaland, and we know City as well, are pretty much fixture proof when it comes to tough fixtures. Yes, they do have some tough fixtures. Yes, Haaland struggled in a couple of those games last season, but Haaland is Haaland, and he's still that dominant physical presence up front. He's a goal scoring machine. So yeah, I think Haaland is definitely someone you should keep. You should look at potentially captaining other players at some game weeks, but there are some game weeks as well where Haaland can still be captain, even though he has been sort of disappointed lately. But yeah, I think you should definitely keep Haaland. Also, I think just one more note of this game is the fact that Hwang probably should have been sent off in the first half as well. He had a yellow card already when he tackled a different player in the box. Pretty bad tackle. Pretty much the same tackle he did when he got the first yellow card. But as we know, the second yellow card is always much more difficult to get than the first yellow card for some reason. So that's pretty much that game. City, disappointing, but I don't think you should lose faith in them. I do think the Rodri thing is a pretty big thing, though, that he's missing, and Stones is missing. Obviously, De Bruyne is missing. They have been struggling a lot with injuries, and it's sort of catching up to them now because they are having a lot of games to play and stuff. So yeah, while they have players out, I think they could still be susceptible to lose some games that they shouldn't lose. But yeah, I still think they are definite title contenders for sure. They are the reigning champions. They are going for the four-peat for the first time. So yeah, they have a chance to do that. But I said before the season, and I still maintain, I think Arsenal will win the league, and I think they'll beat Man City next time. So that's just my guess. But either way, let's move on to the final game, and we don't really have to talk much about it because it was a really boring game. We were actually at a game here in Norway to watch, but we watched the first half of Forest Brentford at the pub, and pretty much nothing happened. And then the second half, just to make it even more FPL relevant, both teams scored with players that no one in FPL has. 1-1. That's the perfect type of game you want to see if you don't have any players from each team. And personally, I had both Flecken and Mbeumo from Brentford. I'm not happy about those guys at all. I still don't know why people still recommend Flecken because he's just been terrible in the Premier League. Brentford are looking pretty terrible as well. And Mbeumo once again played as a right winger this time, so it doesn't look dangerous at all. They should have had a penalty, to be fair. Jan Bissau was definitely impeded, and like you said, so many terrible decisions with VAR, without VAR, whatever. They just can't seem to find the right decisions. So yeah, Brentford in general, if you're on a wild card, no reason to keep any of those players. I do still have Flecken and Mbeumo. I'm kind of stuck with them, but I'm looking to get Areola in for Flecken once West Ham get their two tough fixtures out of the way now. And I'm also looking to sell Mbeumo and probably get Bowen as well. So I'm looking to shift Brentford players off to West Ham players in general. When it comes to Forest, not really much to say, except the only thing that I want to know is what has happened to Morgan Gibbs-White. Like, he was so instrumental for them last season, and this season he has been like nowhere to be seen. Because they have some pretty good fixtures coming up in around like game week 13 or something. I think they have like a really good like 4 or 5 game week run. And I would normally consider Gibbs White, but so far this season he has been really, really, really poor and was benched for this game as well. So, yeah. Any quick thoughts about this game, apart from the fact that it was pretty boring to watch, especially the first half? And yeah, the Brentford assets, I know you've been selling them left, right, and center. I think you're pretty happy about that at this point. So yeah, some quick thoughts about this game before we wrap up the video and go.
I mean, for me, it's been pretty telling that Brentford have just completely lost their steam. They're clearly out of form. Yes, they were able to rescue, well, not rescue because I'm pretty sure they took the lead, but they were still able to get a point and all this type of stuff, but they're on complete free fall. And Mbeumo was playing right wing back and right wing and right mid and just not offensively a threat anymore and is way too pen dependent, and that's not a good sign to have. The bonus of having a midfielder is the fact that they're a pen taker. We don't want to just have them just because they're the pen taker, and that's unfortunately been the case with Mbeumo for a while. I personally sold him for Gordon, who did get an assist and all hoopla and stuff, but of course got his 5th yellow. But still, I couldn't care less. I'd rather have a suspended Gordon on my team than Mbeumo at this rate, and that's very telling because they're just in a complete free fall. Sell everyone. If you have a wild card, ship all of them out. Yeah, they'll eventually find their groove and great, and maybe once Ivan Toney's back and hasn't been sold, then I'm 100% gonna look at getting him in and all this type of stuff. But other than that, yeah, Brentford have been pretty crap, to be completely honest. Going to Nottingham Forest, there's not really much to say. It's really hard to pick players other than their absolute cheapo players, which is Turner and in my case Nuno Tavares, who's not even playing due to injury. So yeah, there's not really much to say. Just have some of their bench players. Of course, if you're looking for a replacement, it's just crazy to think about how many awesome strikers Nigeria have, because Awoni is just great. He looked great and got unlucky not to have scored in the game because he was offside, of course, but had he just held his run, he could have scored, and I still like what I see of him. So if there's one differential player, I'd say from them, go with him. And yeah, I'm really confused to what's going on with Gibbs White too. I think he's had not so great start to the season, and obviously maybe been benched due to that, but once he gets involved again, then I'd consider some of their attacking options. But as of right now, I think you could just avoid these teams, especially all of you guys who are wildcarding in Game Week 8 or even Game Week 9 or 10. Just avoid these guys. And let's just stop talking about this game. It just irritates me. That game was just so fucking boring.
Yeah, and I think that's a nice way to end it. That's pretty much all the games apart from the Chelsea game, which is now happening on Monday. We're recording this before the game. Hopefully Sterling scores. I have already sold him in my team for next game week, but I hope he leaves me a nice leaving present after he has just completely been a failure for me. I bought in Flecken and Sterling the same game week 4, and that has been the worst decision I've made so far, and I'm paying the price for it still. This never would have happened if I had Diaby from game week 1 rather than Eze as well, so kind of annoying things like that happen sometimes in FPL, but that's FPL life. That's what's going to happen. So either way, this has been the FPL eye test. Really nice to do it with Kevin. Really nice to have Kevin here for the weekend as well. Pretty impromptu trip, and it's been fun so far. And yeah, we're not done yet, but you're leaving tomorrow, so I'll be doing the weekly wildcard draft tomorrow, and then on Wednesday we'll record the FPL School podcast, but we'll have it for you guys on Thursday as well. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for all the videos going forward. And as always, when I'm with Kevin, I'll leave the last word to him, and then we'll end the video.
Fuck VAR.